Hello and welcome. Good morning, good evening. I am here. Should I do the voice? Oh, no, not the femme voice. The transvestite from Transexual Transylvania. Dr. Frank N. Furter. Oh, it was fun. I wore makeup for the first time in my life. That was a lot. This video is not about that, but we can, as always, talk about multiple things at once. And one of those is certainly internalized fear, shame, phobias, and the feeling of, putting on makeup as a person who was born in a male body and nail polish, hey. And, someone was helping me, and when I had two friends help me, it was really nice. And at least it was like, it was really, I've met some really supportive people on this path. It's possible, people. There are people out there that can and will love you. Okay, for who you are, not for who you dance to be or whatever, put on the costumes, but they'll help you put on a costume, not for them, for you. Anyway, and so, I resonated. I saw the movie, The Rocky Horror, for like the first time 3 days ago, and I was like, this movie. Wow. Ironic twist. One of the rabbis that carved me was contributed somehow to this being created. He was part of some music industry thing and also was on like the labels of major bands. Did I say I was radicalized by some interesting people? Yeah. Where the hell am I? What are we talking about? Internalized phobias. When I put on the makeup, I could hear these voices. Like, one of them was a person yelling at me saying, you look like a clown. And that's something that once happened to me. Just from I had a lipstick on my face from a kiss. And God, that was mean. And I'm trying to think of the other voices I heard. I just, a lot of screaming of the word faggot at me. As this woman is doing my makeup, can you imagine that I'm having these coming at me. There were more. I could hear my old friends just laughing, or like feeling bad for me. That's one of the worst ones. The feeling bad for me. I imagine people do. I imagine there's like a whole subset of people out there that are like Hazit, the Syrian version of pobrecita, like this, like, oh, poor person. They're never gonna, when are they ever gonna figure it out? And then it'll be caked in with some kind of like critique of my, like, I don't know, some way I'm seeing the world wrong or whatever else, Ultimately, I think a lot of these ways of viewing the world are sorry, I'm distracted by my own nails. The ways of viewing the world, the way you see me, if you are critical, especially of what I'm doing, and you have all right to be critical, but I would push you to see how your criticism of me supports your viewpoint of the world. Now, my criticism of the Syrian lifestyle certainly supports my viewpoint, so it's not to say that even doing that in and of itself is problematic, but seeing how that mechanism is at play can help you begin to perhaps be more compassionate, empathetic, and even question some of the ways you see the world. Maybe. It's complex. Layers on this is like, I don't know exactly who I'm talking to right now. And that's another factor in this. Like, at this point, I wonder, have I weeded out all the non-supporters? Are we just right now in a room of, am I speaking to a room of people who agree with everything I'm saying and are like, wow? I still think not. I'm still going to come from the perspective that, it's just one of the ways I see this. I can see who, God, if you're out there, you're like, no, I can see who looks at my Instagram stories, or no, I don't think I can see specifically who looks at the, who looks at the, now I'm going to get less views on Instagram stories, but who looks at the Instagram thing itself, but I can see who looks at the story. And the list is Syrian. It's a Syrian list of people actively participating in the Syrian community. And no matter what, if you're actively participating in that community, then part of you at least believes part of that, or is at least attempting to fake that. And so I do think a lot of my viewers out there are likely either in it and conflicted, or just concerned folks about my well-being, or so many of those. I hate that. Stop. Worry about yourself. Get out of my, I'm okay. Or I'm trying to be. Get out of the way. What? We're not allowed to worry about you? It's the framework of the idea that I am in a position to be worried about. It's that whole framework that positions me, in a sense, as this person who is doing whose behavior is concerning. I mean, while I'm certainly doing different things. I'm in a place. I have food to eat, place to sleep. I have a little bit of a cold, but I'm taking care of myself pretty well. And, not all of America doesn't have the same weather as Hawaii, would you guess? Oh my God, is it? Someone's out there like eliminating states. No, like, I don't think they're in California. It's pretty good weather. I mean, I might be in California. You don't know. You don't know that. I could be. Someone's got a map out there, No? Is this just my fantasy that people give a shit? Does no one really give a shit? Maybe no one gives a shit. All right. Well, that's freeing. It's been one of the best parts of doing this. It's like, oh my God, I just did the thing I was most scared of doing ever. Like, I feel that in like half of my videos, at least. Every video has something in there that I was at one point terrified of sharing. And it's like been a running theme, I think, in every single one of my videos. Some, obviously, more than others. And yeah, it's amazing. You do the thing, and then you realize, wait, nobody gives a shit. And someone, wow, it's because the people around you don't see what you're doing. I mean, I'm pretty open about what I'm doing. It just happens to be that I found supportive people. Now, that's not to say I've solved world hunger, or even solved the conundrum of community. I still think, even in the places I've been checking out, there are tons of problems. I mean, I am actively in this assessment period of just like, is community really like in the ways that these places are trying real thing? I mean, they're full of God. The intentional community sphere is full of narcissistic leaders. It's full of enmeshed dynamics. Like it still comes from the United States or whatever capitalism. And even if I go all the way to India, if I go to Portugal, if I go to Thailand, if I where the hell I went, God, they're adding more locations to the map of where I might be. I'm in the US right now. And even if I go to those locations, like I'm not outside of like capitalist imperialism. It's easier to interact with. I'm not outside of like power hierarchies. I'm not outside of like feeling unsafe being real. That's one of my most important gauges of how a place is. Any place and any relationship. How safe am I being authentic? Whatever that authenticity looks like. And like you'll say like, well, if your authenticity is like smelling bad and then I have to deal with your smelliness, that's not fair to others. And okay, all right, we can, that's a nuance one. But when I'm talking authentic, I'm talking about calling out things that I'm seeing and feeling, being able to talk about it. It's a nuance, it's really subtle, and there's big reason why I'm tolerating certain things in these communities, and because they're well past many of the issues in the mainstream that I'm no longer, it's not absent, but like some of the initial things I was very upset about, let's say in the Syrian world, materialism, one of the main ones. Once I entered the religious community, God, the mansions were gorgeous. There were moments in that world where I was like eating on these fine plates, and I can't explain it. Like I came from wealth, but this wealth felt nicer in the weirdest way. I don't know if it was like whiter or even richer, but like some of these people made their money on what I would call questionable practices, particularly in the realm of nursing homes. Being involved in that whole industry, and that's not to say like, oh, Syrians are in the cleanest industries. I'm looking at you, Cash Vance. But when I was eating those steaks, I did feel a little uncomfortable. Not just because meat contributes to meat, whatever, to global warming, but God, I don't want to go vegan. I like meat. You'll hear about me becoming a carnivore eventually in the next video probably, but where am I now? I'm like, many of the places I visit are like leaning vegetarian, which just is hard. I like meat. I haven't yet decided that meat life is more important than plant life, but it is. I do see how like meat production is perhaps more impactful than plant production on the environment. So I'm wrestling with just how much I like burgers and steaks. Okay, conscious consumption. How do we be conscious consumers? Anyway, and maybe I could like look up and someone's going to tell me vegetable production is more impactful, and maybe it is. I don't know. I haven't done enough research. I don't know everything. Stop it. Just doctor of psychology. And even that. We're going to hear about how I almost didn't get that one. Okay. Are we ready? What was I talking? Yeah, so like, so whether it's making a video about a topic that I'm scared talking about, or doing a thing that I'm scared, like wearing makeup and wearing a dress on Halloween, and even Halloween's like a permission night. It's really cool like that. Yeah, it's me doing a thing and then proving to myself that no one really gave a shit, and if they did, go fuck themselves. Like, it's this great, I don't know if that's like self-confidence, or it's me finding things that don't particularly hurt others. Like, how does me wearing makeup hurt anybody? And you'll say, it hurt my eyes. Fuck you. You see, you think I can't hear the chorus? There's a word for like this little. It's like it lives rent free inside of my head. I keep the comebacks. I was in a friend crew that was very. And even in a household, and this is, I don't think this was unique to me, but that was very quick quick-witted, quick with the whip, and it's funny. You can smile and laugh, but at the same time, it's a subtle form of control. That if you step outside the line of what we see as normal, then you are a problem. And we're gonna use bullying as a tactic to, it's basically what that is. And so I've internalized those bullies into my head, and I am having to work those out and continuing to do that. It's a process, right? And so we accept you. We're ready to accept you. Like, I'm healing. I'm not even looking for acceptance right now from people who hurt me in the past. The closest thing that would be meaningful would maybe be acknowledgement of harm. Like, just pure acknowledgement without like the but, and just acknowledgement of harm. And this is not like direction. Please don't send me letters acknowledging your harm. But please don't send me letters saying other things. Don't use my portal for clients to send me shit. It's not how you communicate with me. If I wanted you to communicate with me, I would give you a way to do that. Do not use my client portal to communicate with me. It is fucking disturbing boundary violation. It is for clients to message me that they want a coach. And if you are family or were once my close friend, you cannot use that portal. Good? Good? Even the good comments, it's just like, fuck, no, boundaries, folks. And so, like, yeah. I'm the sweet transvestite from Transsexual Transylvania. Dr. Franco? Dr. Frank and Footer? No? Okay. Should we talk about failure? Yeah. Alright, so alright. Hello. Welcome back. Or you were still here in the weirdest way. Anyway, so I last left us off in our story of me entering the Shar, and I'm now in this like religious fantasy of finding community, but it was not just fantasy. There was some reality to it. I had a place that told me I was special, that I had a special soul, and oh my God, is this cult-like behavior? Maybe. It was very funny. My eye doctor as a kid, his son is a rabbi there, and so my parents called our doctor because he was like a reputable, at least like to confirm that what I was entering was not a cult. And I mean, there's cult-like aspects to ultra-Orthodoxy, but there's cult-like aspects to the Syrian community. And this is not to defend ultra-Orthodoxy, but to talk about have a nuanced conversation, and to really have it about the ways in which ultra-Orthodoxy saved me from the Syrian community. Or at least in the beginnings helped me create distance from the Syrian community. If I were to redo this, I certainly would not advocate for people to become ultra-Orthodox in order to leave. There are simpler ways. But I will say that becoming ultra-Orthodox helped me leave. I was leaving in small ways I didn't fully understand, while still holding space for things I wasn't ready to let go of. That being my belief in the Jewish God, or God that cared about me, and my connection to Jewish practice, and the whole idea of being Jewish. So from a harm reduction lens, I gave up. I didn't have to buy into the Syrian materialism anymore. Not to say it wasn't there in the ultra-Orthodox world, but I didn't have to buy into the strict Syrian wedding schedule God, and the I don't know, just certain norms that would be less so present. I mean, the dating scene certainly got simpler. A resume is a lot. It's still high pressure, but a resume and a matchmaker is simpler than a meat market designed like a party, designed to look like and feel like a party, but it's really just a place for you to meet people. And so certainly. I mean, the parties are fun in their own ways, but like I said, like in my video on parties, the shidduchim system was very clear. You're here to date, to get married. Problematic in so many other ways, but in that sense, it at least knew what its goal was. Not to say that the parties don't, but it went about its goal in a much more straightforward, open way. This is what we are. We're not really. They're hiding certain things, but we're not really hiding this. What exactly is the goal here? We want you to get married and make Jewish babies. That is what and make a sustainable Jewish home for the foreseeable future, creating children who will make Jewish babies, right? I think. If you push someone on it, they'll say like, no, we won't. There's more to it than that. But everyone has great ways of like caking their ideologies with like fucking their putting frosting around shit to make it sound nice. I guess there could be other goals too of a shidduchim system. We want you to be happy, but it's very clear. See, Orthodoxy, or at least Jewish ultra-Orthodoxy, was very clear in the way it layer things, like what's important first. Which, for someone who struggles with certain ways of interacting with the universe, it may or may not be somewhere on that spectrum that everyone claims to be on these days. It's very in to be autistic, but I don't know. Who cares? But am I up to? I don't know. I'm not here to diagnose myself, and I don't feel like getting a diagnosis would help me very much. Anyway, maybe it'll get me to come back home. I'll realize I'm crazy. That's not how autism works. Oh, where do people learn about autism? I didn't learn it in school. Is there like a place where they actually teach people? Because they didn't teach me. Maybe it was a different kind. Yeah, they didn't teach it in an adult PsyD program. Maybe it goes into the child one because only children suffer from autism. Oh? Okay. Don't take your Tylenol, folks. Don't forget, it's all the Tylenol's fault. And so God bless our president. One of these episodes I'm gonna burn a flag. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting close. I think it's legal. I'm pretty sure. Okay. So, that is the US flag. Stand beside her and guide her. God bless America. And so, I'm getting ahead of. So I'm entering this religious world. Everything's great, and there's, I don't know, these moments that really push you. That like right when you like try to do something really cool and fun, and you go whacked in the face. And so I'm basically in my therapist's office, and we're basically celebrating this new stage of life and in very good spirits. And ironically, it's July 4th, and we are so dedicated. We are having it's in person. She's in America, and I'm in her office. And while people are out there partying, I'm doing therapy. And while I could be, drinking my brains out and deal, or trying to find a wife there, I am healing. Did I want to see fireworks that night? Sure. Yeah. Oh, I think there was some fireworks in the street on Coney Island as I enjoyed my Joseph's Dream Burger. What a place! That was a nice place. Shout out. Anyway, I um the next day I had a meeting that I didn't think would amount to much. I wasn't that concerned about it. In my 8 hours session of therapy, I probably talked about it for 10 minutes, maybe. Basically, there was a thing called the CCE, the Clinical Competency Exam. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's what it was stood for. And so we basically you were told about this like from the very early stages, if not beginning of the program, that at some point you're going to be tested on your clinical knowledge. And what you're going to have to do is submit a recording from likely one of your first cases. And it's okay, it's one of the first cases, it's going to suck, but you basically talk about the theories you were trying to do and more or less were you effective in them and how you could improve on them. And you submit the recording along with a write-up of your clinical theories to a panel, which will be one professor from the program, or one person from the program usually, and then mixed with two other panel members that are from the outside that probably went to LIU or had some connection to LIU in the past. It will be a panel of clinical psychologists, and they'll rate you on different scales, and you need to go through this to pass the program. We had an entire course, at least one semester. It could have been two, but I believe it was at least one full semester of a course where we worked on this, where every week every other week I had to submit a write-up of different section of the paper, and a clinical psychologist, one of the professors in the program, reviewed that paper. Happens to be the professor doing it was retiring that year. And so maybe his levels of interest were not as high, but ultimately I got there were critiques and they weren't being graded, but like I eventually was going to be, you have to pass in the end. But so in the course, I thought I was hitting all the marks. I didn't get any major negative feedback. I didn't submit the official recording of the session, but I talked about how the therapy went. And when I even presented the case to the class, everyone clapped. They were like, "You are amazing. This is wonderful. You're going to do great. We're all excited for you." And so everything seemed dandy. I mean, the clinical work was not an area of so much concern for me. That case particularly was very challenging, but one of the way I measured success is, are people showing up? Are people, there's different measures to see if people are actually getting better. It's not just about showing up, but I certainly was very good at getting at that part, at getting people to be consistent and developing a healthy way of relating with a human being. And so, yeah, when there's obviously a lot more to therapy and clinical awareness, as I learned the hard way, and so or maybe I'm still learning, but and not to miss from this is the fact that like I'm in therapy 8 hours a day, and I'm still gonna somehow not know what therapy is, but of course not, because the therapy I'm in is not exactly straightforward. I mean, it's straight there, right. And so I get into the meeting. It's basically going to be a Zoom meeting. I get on. The same way I did for my class, when they clap for me, I present the case to the three-way panel, one of which persons has already seen the paper. Did he give me feedback in advance? I think he was supposed to. There were a couple, or was he not? Whatever it wasn't major. He was the same guy as my dissertation. We were in good standing. I didn't see it, but I was going to have any issue with him. The two strangers, I didn't know what would happen. Gone. I'm not going to say their names right now, but the names sounded like instruments of pain. Their last names. Ouchie. And so maybe that was like a foreshadow. And so I get into this meeting, and remember, like, all the shit that has happened to me in the program up to this point, like I narrowly made it through the incident with me denying an extra client, and everything that came up at the clinic, and check out the other videos if you missed that. I narrowly survived that, and that was because of a professor, partially because a professor frickin' stood up for me and went to bat, in her own words. But I didn't have a lot of 3 strikes. I think I had 7 at that point, and so I. All of which, though, I can, I'll obviously push back on many of which. Was I a perfect student? Clearly not. But certainly, much of which was a product of a problematic system and a problematic way of addressing, of educating, of addressing things that can come up, across the board. That's not how you teach people how to do therapy, and how to heal themselves and others. And the two should not be separate things, or that separate. Obviously there's space. They don't have to happen at the exact same time, but in the sense where if you in order to learn how to help others, you need to understand yourself. And certainly if you're using the relational model in the room, you have to understand what you are bringing in and what that even means, like how you feel. You have to really get to know yourself and your feelings in order to understand what this other person in the room is bringing in and what's yours and what's not yours. And for someone coming from enmeshed dynamics, oh my God. Any dynamics is hard, but like enmeshment is like, you never know what's yours and not yours. Okay. And so I get to this meeting, present my case. I wasn't thinking much. My head was still wrapped around just being excited. I'm only like a week or 2 after getting accepted into the yeshiva. And, God, they cut me off mid-sentence. Like I just started presenting it as I practiced, and they cut me off and started to question the recording. And they were basically saying that whatever I was doing was not intervention, whatever I was calling it that was therapy was not therapy, and then I had a poor description of the model. It seemed like I didn't understand the model. And looking back, their critiques were very important. I do think there was a lot I could learn from that experience, and I was actually about to be forced to learn a lot. They even said it themselves at some point that this was bigger than me, and the fact that this came to this point was a symptom of a more problematic system. So there was certainly that too. But the outcome of which was, before I could even finish halfway presenting, I was cut off, questioned, pushed, and then told I was failing. And that I could redo it, or that I was getting a non-pass, and then I could have a chance in 2 weeks to represent. Whoa. First off, like, I wasn't even sure what was going to be. Oh my God, right? Yeah. Imagine like I walk into this meeting thinking this is going to be a walk in the park. I've been practicing for this all year. And I walk out with now another one of these demerits. You think this is not going straight back to the program. And layered on, I'm in an application process for internship that we're also preparing a year in advance for. And you can't even go on internship if you don't pass your CCE. Like you have to pass it in order to continue. And so I was caught very off guard. And this goes back to my first supervisor and his inability to fully help me understand the model we were using and to better have a conversation about what it actually would look like in the room by modeling that in the room with me, which he never did. And so I'm like spinning, and I speak to the one person on the panel who didn't agree with them, and he basically told me he thinks they're holding me to too high of a standard, that what I presented was fine, and that I can brush it up, here's where to fix it up, and we worked on fixing it up. And the two clinicians who basically failed me offered to help, and I was told basically not to take them up on them, that I'm not allowed, or that there was some communication of not to reach out to them. And so I worked for my ass off, because now, like, if I fail this, like, I don't think there's, even the fact that I had this bad first one was not looking good for me. And yeah. And so 2 weeks later, and this is all while I'm still surviving as an active clinician in the addiction clinic I was working in, preparing to enter the next addiction clinic I'll be working in with my dream clinic with Dr. Tatarsky. And participating in an internship course, which is now potentially I'm not even going to be able to apply for. This is a course on how to apply. See, it was, even though I'm in the program, every year you were applying for something else. It was like you always were in this doghouse of like having to prove yourself again and again and again and again and again. I thought like, oh, I'll get in and I'm free. No. It's at the end of year 2, you're applying for the third year externship. At the end of year 3, you're applying for a fourth year. In the beginning, midsummer, right? And right after you get in, start getting ready because you're applying for internship. And guess what? Next is postdoc. And thank God I stopped that train. I didn't go to postdoc. That would be basically what I would need, a year of postdoc to get licensure and to pass a test. An easier test, multiple choice. Yeah. So anyway, or easier in different ways. I don't know. I think there's a reason why a lot of shitty clinicians slip through the cracks, and I don't think CCE exams really prevent that, though they did help me. And ultimately, what I'm going to talk about in failure is this whole experience helping me. I'm not, it's like I'm sitting here, like, eventually it did help me a lot, and I learned a lot about myself. And so the first 2 weeks were certainly, they were panic inducing. I was certainly right afterwards, like, very anxious. I remember it was difficult to be present. Of course, more reasons to lean into Amuna, more reasons to I'm in all these Torah classes, so it's perfect timing for me to like need to hold on to something, because the framework of my reality is cracking. And while I didn't need a doctorate program to, I was still on this beautiful Jewish journey. Like, if somehow I failed out at a doctorate program, like, I understood that I had a lot of degrees. I didn't know exactly how I would get licensure, but I could still do creative things. I mean, hey, I'm doing creative things, but I'm licensed, and so I didn't know what would be possible. But I still didn't want to, obviously, like, you work that hard, you're there that long. Like, I still dreamed about opening a clinic. That was my fantasy, that I would open a clinic in New York. And my fantasy / my therapist fantasy mixed somehow with my dad's fear of dad. And I don't think he cared that much, but also, like, I still had this underlying pressure that I would make a lot of money in whatever I did, even though it wasn't exactly coming from him. It was, like, associated. And this fear, somehow the program failures were very much like fear of authority systems, even though it wasn't directly him anymore. And he was mostly supportive throughout the process, though a lot of our conversations had to do with they were very, I guess, work oriented. I can't fully explain it. They weren't very motion focused. They were, how's it going at school? How's it going school? Even we call it school. It's so funny to still be in school at that age. And anyway, and still be like feeling like the principal's gonna get me, even though I didn't even feel like that at Flatbush. That wasn't my Flatbush experience, at least until the drug test in late high school. Like, a good old drug test. What a great way to really prevent drug usage. Drug tests. That's how you're gonna do it. Anyway, so even like, what a great way to make sure you have competent clinicians to force them in front of a panel like this. I don't think this is exactly how we churn out. I think it's one of the measures you could put in a way, but like, I just think there's much more. There shouldn't be this failure. It should be like a creative, constructive dialogue and conversation through a growth experience, not that, oh my God, I just failed, I could lose my standing in the program right now. That's how you create like people who are afraid and responding to trauma. But I actually had at this point developed good trauma response. As in, like, the way I responded to trauma was with, all right, how the fuck am I going to figure this out? That's how throughout my life I have. A basketball coach once said he'd asked me to shoot 10 foul shots, and I shot 1,000 and had a bloody nose, but I hit 10 eventually, and to score 10 foul shots. And he said, whatever this kid does, he's gonna, and I heard that coach in my head. It's just like there's mean voices in the head, there's positive voices, and that coach, thank you, and he said, whatever this kid does, he's gonna be good at. And resilience. And so I fail, and I fix up the paper and bring it in, and I show up with this new fixed up paper. I read more on the theory, I worded it better, I was more careful, and I come in again, and again, they're like, no, this one was worse actually. Imagine 2 weeks. 2 weeks I dedicated to 2 weeks is a long time. And I like to really think about all day long. And I come into this meeting, and they're like, where's the new case? And I'm like, new case? And they're like, yeah, you were supposed to bring in a new case. Like a different write-up, you were supposed to redo the whole and that was, I went back and forth with the third person on that panel how many times to find out that it was supposed to, total miscommunication. Then they critiqued me for not going to them for help, which again, I was communicated not to go to them for help. And then they basically said, and the new writer still doesn't see the problems. So then, and it was again, and then they got into an argument with the third person in front of me, and I just felt like I'm in this outside. And at this point, I'm just feeling like this small little kid watching my parents fight but at least someone was trying to defend me, but it was just, what the hell? Because these two people from outside basically were upset at LIU and thought this was more, and were voicing their frustrations. But in all this, I'm the one who's going to get fucked. And, they'll argue that my clients are the ones that are going to get screwed if I'm, improperly treating them. There's a good argument to be made if there was something really that problematic. What they were talking about was theoretical, and really understanding theory on a deeper level. I think that could be the basis of some potential challenges, things being missed, and I'll get to how exactly that looked, but it's the ways of communicating that, again, through this punishment system. You'll say, well, how else were you supposed to do it? Is nothing else going to get through your head? Really? Because I've just said that one of my best courseworks was one where it was more discussion-based, or at least I'll say it now. Some of my best courses were the ones that weren't so heavily focused on grades, that were focused on discussion and interaction and exploration. You're like, well, clearly you didn't learn anything. You didn't know how to do the thing. I'm like, well, first off, how are we measuring what? And I didn't know how to do this specific style of therapy because it's extremely complicated and difficult to do if not properly modeled and explained. To this day, it's the model I use, so I learned how to do it. But and I have to. But we'll get there. And so I still gave over a pretty horrific explanation in my 2 videos ago, so I'm going to try it. Thanks for sticking with me, folk. And so, God, I really felt that this is how I feel when I still have trauma from it when I make these videos here. Certainly when I made my earliest videos, I couldn't stop thinking about these two clinicians, failing me and especially the suicide video I did. I'm like, oh my God, I did it wrong. Oh my God, my theory's off. Even making this video now, I'm still fuck, is my theory off? Do I not have it? Am I missing something? What am I missing? Whew. Right. And for the 50 people watching, or whatever, 100 people thinks, maybe one day these will blow up, who knows? But for whatever, you're out there. Thanks for not being that. Thanks for being understanding. Obviously, there's a disclaimer. Obviously, I hope this stuff is helpful. And so I come back. It comes back. The news obviously goes back to the program that I failed again. Right, because it was a failure because I didn't do what they asked apparently, even though I could hear them, because you weren't listening, you never listened. I'm like, I submitted the remakes to the third person in the room too, many times. I was in communication with them. I was under a clear impression, and it's not just because I wasn't listening. It was clearly a miscommunication of what it meant to redo it. Anyway, that counts as a second fail, apparently. So I'm going to have this third chance to present a new case. And was I? No. They, in the meeting while they were fighting with each other, I finally spoke up. And I said, hey, while you're fighting, I'm still out here, and you're voicing your stuff about the program, and maybe, I don't know, you see something in the client that you were, for whatever reason, why are you taking it out on me? Why are you taking it out on me? And they finally were like, see, that's you. You finally showed up. We've been waiting for you to take a swing. You've been waiting for me to take a swing? I mean, look, anger showing up in the room is authentic and real, and I was feeling attacked, and I finally I allowed it out. But to say that's the real me, and that, I mean, if anything, like, me acting for them and people pleasing should clearly be, that's not on, it's a sign that the system is built on trauma and fear. People pleasing doesn't survive if people pleasing isn't rewarded. And so I was left, God, right. And so the word gets back, and my program basically emails me that they're going to give me another chance. But this time they created I can't remember the order of operations here. At some point, they're going to have a vote. I can't remember if it was after my third failure, I'm going to fail a third time, or after the fourth. Oh, no, it was only, God. Okay, I can't remember at which point this happens. But at this point, basically, they have convened and decided that it's possible that these two people had something up for me or the program, and that they'll give me another chance. Especially given that one of the professors on my panel who was on that was part of the program was defending me and saying that he would have passed me from the first try. And so, wow. And so they make a new panel of three people, and one of which is gonna be the God. All the while, by the way, the program is like losing their. I don't know if I think the guy who was the dean left, and to some other higher paying job, and so there's like all this commotion of who's even in charge of the program. So I think he was sitting as co-director. That's what they're called, directors. So I think he was sitting as co-director of the program at the time. Anyway, the guy who I failed in the first video for my first year because I was laughing too hard, and the same guy I went up to at that party, and that guy's going to be on that board, right? This is this totally impartial board. Hopefully, I'll be okay. And I presented, and it was also they. God, it's on psychodynamic theory, and he's not even coming from a psychodynamic perspective. But anyway, so there's three people on the board. I show up again 2 weeks later or a week later with all this time, more time to fester and panic. And there were moments where I really was like splitting off from myself. It was really, really dark times. Was there suicidal ideations? Probably. I at the time, probably things that pulled me through were belief in God and Judaism, as well as the voices of my nephews asking what happened to Uncle Momo. Those were my two things I had to hang on to. I had pictures of my nephews, and they were literally my lifelines, without knowing it. I have never really intentionally self-harmed, so I it wasn't like I was really, I don't know how certain it was that I was going to go through with it, but it was certainly it was really, 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 really intense to just be present in my body. I had to, and I was all the while like doing this while part of the shar, like in the early days, like trying to make a good impression as a person there, and also having to sit on meals in other people's homes and just survive in like a very publicly visible way where I'm having trouble like existing, like I'm in mid panic attack, but I can't really talk about it because I'm with like new people and people I'm trying to not seem like I'm mad, and I was having a lot of trouble. It was difficult. Also, while balancing dynamics at home with people that are not that excited that that I've just joined this religious community, that I've gone to far fuck away for the summer, and yeah, wow, yeah, what a summer, right? And oh god, yeah. So I show up to his third meeting, and again, it wasn't enough. They were at least more specific this time. One of them was talking about that I didn't fully understand self-disclosure, and that self-disclosure was not in the session. I had mentioned me and the client bonded over a concert that we both realized that we went to, or a band we both liked, something like that, and the clinician was quick to point out that that is not self-disclosure as a therapeutic tool. That's very surface level. And okay, sure, it was like the 10th session, but I actually do hear it a lot, and that I end up. So one of them was claiming my self-disclosure. I didn't fully understand self-disclosure, and we'll get to that part. Another was claiming oh my god, this was the person. I knew there was someone else on the board. The person who didn't like that, or was claiming that I was coming out of the shower on my Zoom screen. This person felt my theory, that I didn't fully understand the theory. And again, they may have had a point. I didn't fully understand the theory. And yeah, and overall that the whole case was in a way compromised just based on the interactions I had with the initial supervisor, and that he never did, help me understand my fears of authority in the room with him, and how that replayed in the dynamic with my client, and this whole cycle of replay. It was actually some really interesting feedback that was actually constructive and helpful at this point, and specific. And so, but I don't remember if it was after failing that time or after failing the time before. But what basically happened was I get on a meeting. I've now failed 3 times. And they didn't tell me there was any recourse after the third failure. They told me, we'll get back to you. And they get back to me, and it's that professor, the man who was originally the man who accepted me. We'll call him Professor B. And so Professor B looks at me on the Zoom screen. Oh God, it was Sukkot. I remember it was Erev Sukkot, because I was going into this holiday. I'm like just praying that I'd have some kind of, Judgment Day has passed. Have I survived? You see like religious parallels in Judaism. Like we literally see Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur as these days of judgment where you're like written in the book. And during that time, I was being judged by my program of whether or not I would stay. And there was a literal vote. You think I didn't think the Rosh Hashanah prayers? I had a freaking strong Rosh Hashanah, one of my strongest. God. And so, and to this day, like looking back, like planted seeds for my eventual escape. Can you imagine? This whole story is gonna, yeah. And so, I'm grateful for that story. This one actually. I mean, it was a horrific experience. I'd wish it on nobody. But yeah. So what basically happens is the professor shows up, and I'm also grateful because I survived. Obviously, if I didn't survive at that point in the program, who the hell knows what would have come next? I never would have worked at Tatarsky. There's a chance that I don't. I mean, 2 of the figures that would basically help me come to the realizations I did were my next 2 supervisors. And so if I didn't meet those next two supervisors, I don't know how quickly I make it out of the Syrian world. If I didn't get pushed the way I did at working in the psychiatric facility, I don't know how quickly I make it out of the religious world. And so, it's a very... And so the professor gets back to me on the Zoom screen. It's Erev Sukkot. I'm going into this holiday. I'm really praying it'll be a good one. Did I pass my judgment? Is it going to be a celebratory? Have I survived? And he told me, this was his words, "I don't know why I'm telling you this, but there was a vote. We're 9 people, and the vote was 5-4. You passed. Not that we didn't expel you. That was what we were voting on. If we were going to expel you in that moment, you passed by 1 vote. Maybe it wasn't, whatever it was, I passed by 1 vote. Maybe in my head I thought it was 5-4. Maybe there was 11 people. Whatever it was, one vote." And in that room was no longer the person who went to bat for me. She had already retired. So whoever those people were that voted in my favor, I guess I'm grateful. Thanks. And yeah, wow. And so now that I had passed, he was taking charge. Now, I don't know how he voted, but but he was clearly taking charge of the remediation plan. He was in charge of it, and he sent me this letter of what it was going to look like. They were basically going to not allow me to apply to internship. They were going to delay me in the program a full year. And they were, in that meantime, I was going to have to redo the entire case on a new case and take that course that I took in order to prepare me for it all over again. And I still, even though I wasn't allowed to apply for internship, this is the 5th year internship needed to graduate, even though I'm not allowed to apply, I still have to sit through the course. There's a course that helps us apply. Because again, this is what we're having our clinicians spend our time training for, applications. You really get great clinicians when you have them train for applications. I get it. The essay writing was actually pretty cool. There was some interesting things, but like having to survive every step of that was not fun. Not just not fun, I don't think it creates the healthiest clinician. I think creating space where people feel safe, being authentic and real, creates healthy helpers. And you meet people where they're at. That's just me. I'm just a human being. And I shouldn't need to claim my doctorate or any of my master's degrees to have some authority in what I'm saying. I'm speaking from experience as a human being. That's where I'm coming from. And so looking back, I do want to talk about a bit about what I learned, how I learned, but I also want to leave that for the next video because it'll go hand in hand with my experience there. I will say in short, if you like, I basically spent the next 6 months because I tried to make in my head I didn't want to be delayed a year, so I was going to try and do this faster and better and still hit all the goals they wanted me to hit. Each individual professor had their own goals they wanted me to hit. I was going to have to learn about self-disclosure. I was going to have to prove that to one professor. I was going to have to prove to another that I knew the theory. And I was going to have to also just have no bad marks from the current externship or the next one. No bad reports. It was going to have to be in the clear. No, I was hopeful that at least the next clinic, my things were good at the clinic I was at, and the next one I was going to was one that we mostly saw eye to eye on in terms of model and just being an experience. So I was hopeful all of that would work out. But I will say it was torturous being in that internship class, thinking that, what is this even for? Will I even be able to apply? And so I took a self-disclosure class. In the shortest, I'll talk more about this, but important self-disclosure can look like sharing how I feel in the room related to things the other person is bringing in that can help them learn about ways others may feel around them in relationship styles. So that kind of reveal can be very scary for me to do, and very authentic and very therapeutic in the sense of helping people learn about their ways of relating and being. Not just going to the same concert, or both being Met fans, or both being Jewish, or even both being trans or gay. Everyone's experience of religion, of transness, of gay, of even being a Met fan is different. And yeah, it could be sweet. It could be an initial, like, oh, we both like the Mets. We both like the Grateful Dead. We both are queer. Like, that's a great introduction to maybe being in the same space, but a powerful self-disclosure, a therapeutic self-disclosure is one that is often scary, hard to say, and even if not, it doesn't have to be scary, but it's about saying the thing that is in the room that comes from this place of, that you as the clinician are assessing. It may be coming from the client. Go on. There's other forms of self-disclosure. Obviously, it's a long conversation. I had to take a whole course in it, and it's actually a really cool course. And there's like I self-disclosed that I am trans. I didn't have to do that, but it's certainly, now that I've self-disclosed and it's in the room. Could I have hid it? Probably. Could I have hid that I'm on HRT? Probably. There are things that are harder to hide. Like, I was wearing a yarmulke. Some people I had a whole cool, so interesting presentation on what it, talking about being pregnant in the room and all the things that could bring up for you, for the client, and whoa. And there's things, that are obviously like pregnancy that are harder to hide. And there's just like sharing the difficult news of not being able to, maybe you have to take a break from therapy, something's coming up. Like, there's all different styles of what self-disclosure can look like and how it can be important in the room. Yeah. So that was just one example, right? And you see, like, that I got to learn, experience, and grow in because of this pushback. I forced myself to also learn the model. One of the great books that really helped, I buried myself in an object relations textbook. I watched tons of videos on Hannah Levinson doing the time-limited dynamic psychotherapy model, and read a bunch of papers and like really, really drilled whatever the hell was happening in the room into my brain. Suddenly other papers started to come more alive, like Tatarsky's textbook that I had already kind of known about, but was, oh wait, he's talking about relational model because it was something he was using, and okay, whoa, he particularly learning about submit, rebel, bind. I could give a whole thing on the submit, rebel, bind, basically the relationship between an authoritarian and someone they're coming down on, and how they push and pull each other, and even it's their relationship now. This is the basis of their relationship, is one that maybe is eliciting angry responses, and how that dance plays out. It's fascinating stuff. God, I'm like, oh my God, am I still doing this? Oh, baby. It's hard to also, even if you learn about these things, it's still hard to find new ways and healthier ways of relating. It's a process. It isn't your fault. This is usually, much of this stuff, if it is problematic, is trauma-based from the places we came from. And of all things, the Big Leap author wrote a book on called The 10-Second Miracle, about saying scary things. That helped me a lot in understanding it, how to do it, what it looks like in the most simplistic terms of just like, there's a thing so many times in a relationship, especially if the relationship is stagnating, where there's conflict, where it's a thing you're afraid to say. And if you say it, and when you say it, it's like he calls it a miracle. It's like there's movement. It may not be quote unquote positive. It could end relationships, but there's finally movement, life. There's something, it stops being cyclic, or something has stopped the cycle. So that's just a bit of what I basically had to learn. I forced myself to learn theory in order to pass my competency exams. So, whoa. So so this has been fail. The grades fail. I think Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Maybe that's just a hearsay. Maybe, I don't know. Did the grades fail? Maybe. I failed 3 times. They told me I wasn't competent. That hurt. And I'm glad. Oh, am I going to really be the guy who says it? I'm glad it happened. I wish it happened another way, but I certainly came out. I wouldn't wish cancer on any person, but I certainly came out stronger on the other side. Yeah. But here's me advocating for different ways. We shouldn't have to teach our clinicians with sticks. I would hope we wouldn't. All right. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of it. And God, I hope you find success in your endeavors, but if you fail, know you're not alone. Oh my God. And it's very scary, especially when your life and salary and futures and things that are important, you can rely on it. It's not fun or funny. It's painful. My heart is with you. Stay safe, folks. And have a magically delicious day. This is your favorite transvestite from Transexual Transylvania signing off.